I just want to ask you in these last minute or two about where you see both your work going, sort of what you discovered that you now need to sort of understand beyond this project, or where you think young researchers or scholars in the field today need to. What are the questions that they need to be asking or pursuing?
Well, it was sort of at the tail end of this project, and it made it into one chapter in the book. I had sort of an aha moment where I realized, okay, the computers in the internet cafes are secondhand, and they have property tags, and this is another sort of tracing or following that I was doing. You could tell they came from like institutions, universities, the New York Public Library, that these machines were coming from other locations and finding their way into internet cafes in Ghana. And eventually I realized, and it was partly because there was all this coverage of e-waste, the importing of like junk, electronic junk into countries like Ghana and Nigeria and China. I realized that this was part of that story. These secondhand computers were part of a flow of secondhand used, sometimes waste goods into Ghana. And I think that question about the material infrastructure is really interesting to think about. They've been laying, over the last decade or so, they've been laying these subterranean fiber optic cables all along the coast, the African continent. And a lot of that's so invisible. I mean, maybe I'm just fascinated with things that are
invisible.
But it's invisible. But there's a lot of conversation about how hugely consequential it is, or it will be, in kind of in negative terms, in terms of e-waste, and in positive terms, in terms of those fiber optic cables. And a lot of the process of writing this book was really a process of starting from the screen and then stepping away and looking at the layers of what was going on that eventually created that possibility of a moment at a screen between a young
and you have this really awesome image of a spiral that you're thinking about as this kind of spiraling outward, and I love that.
Yeah, so I think that things under the kind of banner of infrastructure studies are really promising. I ended up doing some work for a couple of years on mobile phones, and the internet's really fascinating. Mobile phones are certainly more ubiquitous. I mean, they're, especially since I started this project back in 2003, everybody has a mobile phone, and there's a lot to kind of think about there as well. And a very different story than the story of the internet in Ghana.
Yeah, so that's fascinating. Yeah, and maybe even the connections between these technologies, right? I'm sure there are interesting ones.
Oh, yeah.
I want to thank you so much, Jenna, and
Sure.
We will obviously include a link to your book and your website and all that in the interview, and I look forward to seeing your work as it comes out.
Yeah, thank you. I thanks so much for allowing me to be the inaugural.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but it's so perfect because you really are getting at this notion of invisibility versus visibility and the way that these screens mediate that, and that's awesome. Yeah. So thanks, Jenna.
Thank you.